May the power of Volkmar's mustache guide you, my friends, and welcome to the showdown between the Empire, who shall be led by Volkmar, atop his mighty pimp wagon. And today, guys, he's going to be facing off against the Greenskins, who are going to be led by Dr. Doom in Darkness, aka Azag the Slaughterer. So as far as the build goes, we're going to be going in pretty deep with the Warrior Priest build. So we do, of course, have Volkmar on his chariot here, or wagon. I don't know. I guess it's like, what does it say in the tooltip? Magical chariot, but it should be magical wagon. I think that'd be way cooler. But nonetheless, Volkmar is going to be buffing up a front line of the Empire troops. So he's going to be buffing greatswords and also the Sigmar Sons. And he can certainly make those guys very potent. Now, typically, if greatswords are fighting black orcs or kind of their equivalents for other factions, they aren't going to be having the best time. Typically, their stats aren't up to snuff compared to those units, but what's really cool about the Empire is their buffing capability. So, of course, Volkmar here does have the Grand Hammer of Sigmar. If we go ahead and take a look here, it is going to be giving 26 melee attack. He does have the Shield of Faith, which gives 22% ward save. We, of course, have access to Lore of Life, where the Greenskins don't. And last but not least, this is the main reason for this replay, is we are going to be showcasing the new Grand Soulfire. So Soulfire no longer gives magic resistance, and it has a very, very small radius. So you can see the radius, I think, used to be 45 meters, but now it's 15, so it's pretty tiny. However, guys, big however here. This spell does so much damage now against light armor. So if you're fighting goblins or even heavily armored troops like black orcs, it's going to be able to do some pretty steady damage. It says it's weak against armor, but really, if they're blobbed up enough around you, it actually can do some okay work against armor. But where it really shines is against savage orcs, goblins, against biggins, things like that. You know, most of the Greenskin roster, really, and it does a ton of work. On top of that, Volkmar on his mustachio wagon here does cause terror, which is going to be quite nice, and he heals himself, so you can invest your resources with your Jade Wizard elsewhere. So the front line's going to be going in hard for Sigmar, 3 greatswords and the Sigmar Sons, 2 spearmen here in the front, which are just going to be taking a beating. The Greenskin Wa obviously is very scary, so we want to send in the spearmen to take that beating initially, but you know what, Sigmar will greet them in the afterlife, and I'm sure they'll be rewarded just fine. Here in the front, we got 3 Pistoliers, and Pistoliers are a pretty good skirmishing unit against Greenskins, because most of the Greenskin skirmishing corps, if not all of them, I think, are very lightly armored. So Spider Riders do have shields, but they only have 45 armor. Squigs have 50 armor. I think that the Orc Boar Boys have like something like 45 or 50 armor, something like that. So Pistoliers are going to be able to do some pretty good work there. And Greenskins obviously don't have the best leadership either. So Pistoliers make a really good dual-purpose unit for actually chasing down riding Greenskin units. So for example, if I'm able to get in there and do a ton of shock damage against some Biggins, which are an expensive unit, right? And I think he has some Biggins mixed in here. He does. And break them off, I can then chase them off the battlefield with Pistoliers and accrue some pretty good value. So 3 Pistoliers in total, 2 groups of the Knights of the Blazing Sun, because what Crusade build would be complete without the Knights of the Blazing Sun? Plus, they are also pretty good against Azag. They have magic damage resistance. Sorry, I just had an Elmer Fudd moment, or Porky Pig. But basically, they have magic resist. So Fate of Unit is a pretty common effect against like heavy cav and things like that, and Spirit Leech as well. So being able to mitigate 25% of that on these guys, compared to Reiksguard, who wouldn't be able to, is quite nice. Plus, their shock damage is going to be really good against light armor. So we've got 2 of those bad boys who are going to be led by a Warrior Priest, and this is actually a really strong combo. So you get the Warrior Priest, you get these abilities, so the Soulfire, and it depends on how you want to use Warrior Priest. If you're going to be using him in the front line and you already have Volkmar, you don't necessarily have to bring all the abilities, but since he's with the cav, I think it's prudent. So we have the Hammer of Sigmar, we have the Shield of Faith, plus we have the Soulfire Bombardment, but what's really good is the Scroll of Power. So this lowers the cooldown of one of your abilities by 90 seconds. I think it's just one ability. Because I popped it when I had all 3 on cooldown, it only actually cooled down the Soulfire. But it's really, really strong. So basically it allows you to double rapid fire these Soulfires, which now do really good damage. That's pretty much it for my army here. And for my opponent, Cheeks Total War, who is a YouTuber as well, there will be a link to his comment section in the video afterwards. So it's going to be Azag here with Spirit Leech and Buna. Pretty common stuff. Buna is pretty good against heavy cav and knights like that, and even against elite troops like Greatswords, who would probably be the best target for him. And he does also have Spirit Leech against some of my heroic units. For his score, he's got Goblins, he's got Orc Biggins, and Biggins are a pretty good dual-purpose unit. They will be able to defeat pretty much most state troops. They will lose against Greatswords, but for the most part with Wa, they might actually be able to put a huge dent in them. And I'm not really sure if they would win with Wa, but hard to say. So Biggins in the front line, Orc Boys. He does also have a Goblin Big Boss back here, probably to hunt down my casters. He does also have a Night Goblin Shaman, so some more sniping. So Vindictive Glare plus Spirit Leech can be quite strong. And in the back, he's got some archers, so he's got Night Goblin Archers plus the Rusty Airs and 2 Doomdiver Catapults, so it certainly caught me off guard. I'm very used to Greenskin Blitzes, but in this case, he's going to be forcing me in with Doomdivers, which are actually doing a really good job kind of counter-skirmishing my Pistoliers. I mean, I can't get freebies on him here. He's able to get some really good shots, and I've already lost 10 models. On top of that, he's got 2 groups of Forest Goblin Spider Riders, one here and one on the far side, each of which is going to be teamed up with Squigs. Now, I like this combo quite a bit because it basically is a great tool against heavy cav. Now, the Forest Goblin Spider Riders have good melee defense, they have poison, so you poison, slow the enemy heavy cav, which at that point, the Forest Goblin Spider Riders probably would lose against most heavy cav. However, the Squigs come in against the poison targets, they have good AP, good punch, and a solid charge bonus, so it's a really, really good combo. So on that note, guys, let's get the show on the road and have some fun. So Doomdivers are going to be coming downtown. and really bombing my Pistoliers, which I figured, hey, I'm not really going to be able to get away from them, so let's get in here, let's get some freebies here on the Orc Boys and some of the Biggins. I actually thought they were all Biggins, or else I would have put all my firepower here into the Biggins, but we're just going to be shooting into the front line, doing a little bit of light skirmishing, but we will be falling back here in a moment and kiting. In the meantime, the brave Sons of Sigmar are advancing here, so you can see that Volkmar the Grim with his powerful mustache and Wagon of Doom is going to be surging forward, but the Doom Diver catapults are now going to be going after the Knights of the Blazing Sun, which is a good choice. Despite the low AP on those units, it still will add up over the course of a long battle. So the frontline fighting is about to be underway. The Swordsmen and Volkmar are going to be surging in, and let's see if we can bait out the Wa here initially. So Spearmen are going to be charging in against these Orc Boys and Goblins, which is going to be rough for the Spearmen, but it's nice that they take the charge. And then the Greatswords follow up. Obviously, they're more elite. Sigmar Sons here in the middle are going to be fighting against Orc Biggins, which is going to be hard for the Sigmar Sons, but with Volkmar's Wagon running over, chanting, shouting the Grand Shield of Faith, bestowing these brave Sons of Sigmar 22% ward save, definitely going to be very strong. So Volkmar is going to be rotating over here now, and he's going to be buffing up these troops. So the Grand Hammer going down in Greatswords, and they're making pretty good work of these Biggins. You can see the Biggins here are really getting buzzsawed, and the melee fight is actually going quite well for the Empire, which I definitely think is always a good sign. Pistoliers are going to be doing a big flanking maneuver, so attacking the Rusty Airs, and Knights of the Blazing Sun are going to be coming into the back line. One group is going to be surging in to pin in these forces, so we pin them into the Greatswords with a huge charge, and the other group is going to be riding back here to just mincemeat these archers, just doing brutal shock damage against the Night Goblin archers. So far so good, but now it's going to come the counterpunch. So over here in the back, the Warrior Priest plus the Pistoliers were kind of holding back this tide, but now you can see the countercharge is going to be coming, so I'm basically going to be forced back. So if we look back over here into the Volkmar battle, I do get a Banishment. You can't cast Banishment right on top of yourself, so I had to cast it over here, but it did go the wrong way, unfortunately, which sucks. But Volkmar is really holding back quite a tide here. The Greatswords are getting very beleaguered, and of course my Spears have been forced back. But now I have some reinforcements coming in, and Spirit Leech Focus Fire on my Jade Wizard has actually been enough to really break him down, so I'm kind of without healing right now, which is a little bit scary. But man, Volkmar is just such a beast, able to hold back this massive tide of Greenskins. And as far as kills go, he's up to 42, which at this point in the game really isn't bad. Pistoliers are going to be shooting Spider Riders. The Greatswords were able to break through over here and win their fights, so now they're going to be trying to pick off some squigs on whatever troops they can basically reach. And the other group of Greatswords is going to be surging back here to help out the Warrior Priest. So here comes the Soulfire Bombardment, but I think he's going to be dodging most of it. Yeah, he kind of dodges the radius, but it still does some okay damage against these lightly armored troops. And the Greatswords are going to be surging in, so the Greatsword's going to help the Warrior Priest out, which is going to be nice. There are going to be layers of buff. And the Sigmar Sons here, well, metaphorically speaking, the Greatsword should be able to really, cut up these goblins pretty good. So in the meantime, Volkmar the Grim kind of stands alone, though. The Sigmar Sons and the Greatswords he had, it really got buckled off. Azog flying over, there's obviously Squigs, there's just a massive number of Greenskins here. So the Greatswords do get broken off, but Volkmar is going to be able to hold this, which is quite good. And plus with the Soulfire Bombardment, when it does come off cooldown, he's going to be able to do some really good damage. Now in the back, we've had some pretty good success. My opponent did commit most of his resources to the front line, so I was able to get some Knights of the Blazing Sun and Greatswords through, and I was able to get the Doom Diver catapults offline, which is a huge boon because those things were doing a ton of damage. In the back line, we do also have our Pistoliers continuing to kite, so they're just going to be kiting against these Squigs, kind of picking these guys off, and Squigs are a very, very good target to kite. I mean, that's going to be a juicy situation. They're lightly armored and relatively slow, so we should be able to get away. In the meantime, my Jade Wizard does come back, which is quite nice. I was a little bit concerned about that because my forces were starting to get a little bit tired and beaten up here. Some Knights of the Blazing Sun charging into these goblins up on the high ground. Essentially, at this point in the game, just looking for lightly armored targets that I can really kind of pick off because my Knights did take a lot of damage from the countercharge of my opponent. But here comes the Grand Soulfire, going to be dropping on these filthy goblins and doing some pretty good damage. Oh man, just melting those Forest Goblin Spider Riders and Squigs. And Volkmar the Grim just holding his own against Azog, just not giving any shits. Him and his Pimp Wagon are going to continue rolling on. And the Warrior Priest over here is going to be going after the Night Goblin Shaman. So we do also have some Knights of the Blazing Sun rallying back. Greatswords are going to be coming back out of the forest where they were originally broken, but we still have a pretty good Greatsword count. Over here we do have 80 models left. We also have 84 over here who are going to be fighting the Goblin RORs. With their bonus first infantry plus their armor is going to make these guys just absolute world destroyers here against these troops. So good situation here for the Greatswords, but back up here we do have a big kind of a cataclysmic fight, but this is going to be nice for me because I'm getting these Soulfire Bombardments, just nuking the Squigs and the lightly armored troops with the Soulfire, Banishment going down, just burning through the witches, digging the ditches, whatever Rob Zombie says, it's happening here quite good. And now, Azog is trying to get in there and snipe the Warrior Priest, but with the Shield of Faith, he's going to be quite tanky. We have a ton of Greatswords who, though they lack a bonus versus large against Azog, they still have pretty good AP value. So in sustained combat, especially with the Grand Hammer of Sigmar, they are going to be able to do some really good damage against him. Volkmar the Grim just going to be running over a Goblin right here, so this poor little Goblin just getting trounced by the Chariot of Doom. And he's going to be terrified off, so the little Night Goblin Big Boss here going to be, or just regular Goblin Big Boss is going to be pushed off. So a second wall is going to be going down. Doom Diver catapults have come back online. Greatswords in the back have cleaned up the Night Goblins, and our Pistoliers are going to be coming back in and cleaning up. So at this point in the game, you know, in many close games, at high level play, wherever it may be, having a unit that can chase down riding units in the end game is huge, because there's a lot of greenskins here, right? You have 37 biggins, you have goblins here, you have more biggins here, like archers that are still somewhat healthy, and being able to kind of charge them and chase them all off the battlefield is just so valuable. So the pistoliers coming in, getting a huge charge against the goblins. Not that it'll do a ton of damage, but they're going to be shooting their pistols while they chase them as well, which is quite nice. Azag's going to be coming in for a big old alpha strike here. It looks like he's going to be jumping on the Jade Wizard, throwing all his spaghetti here at the walls, but I do get an Earthblood before I get terrified. And Azag is going to be getting beaten down by the Fury of Sigmar, the Righteousness of Sigmar, the Grand Theologist or Theologist or something? Anyways, he's going to be coming in, waving that just badass hammer, and that's going to be it for the orcs. So this is a style of play that I think Empire could do before, and I think it was already pretty good against Greenskins, surprising them with a heavy front line, because Greenskins typically are going to be like, oh, it's going to be state troops and Demogryph Knights and like heavy cav and things like that, but if you can come in with the Empire and surprise your opponents with, you know, heavy grinding frontline with great swords and Sigmar Sons, who are going to be getting just juice to the gills, just straight up pumped with steroids by the Warrior Priest and Volkmar the Grim, it can be pretty good. You can see 86 kills here, 36 kills. The Great Swords were able to do a good job. Knights of the Blazing Sun cleaned up shop. Despite the countercharge, I was able to get around the flank and break that front line, which then opened up the back line, the Doomdiver Catapults, the Archers. It did come at a cost, but I think it was worth it. Knights of the Blazing Sun are always a very fun unit to use. But yeah, I like this build quite a bit. It has pretty good battlefield control. Pistoliers really do free up the skirmishing game, and also pretty good for chasing. Greatswords can grind down the front line, and even if they do have black orcs, if you have Volkmar the Grim plus a Warrior Priest, you can actually put a bit of hurt on those guys and do some pretty good work. Although, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think if I would change anything here. I feel like this build does have one really glaring weakness, which is the fact, like, what would I do if my opponent brought like an Arachnarok Spider or like something really big and scary like that? It would be problematic. I don't know what I would do. Probably not much, but again, I think most people respect the fact that the Empire has like cannons and, you know, handgunners and pretty good anti-large capabilities with its missiles, so they don't really bring things like that. So you can usually get away with something like this. But in retrospect, I might cut one unit here and just make sure to get like some dedicated armor-piercing anti-large, like the silver bullets or something that in a very like tight pinch would be able to take out a target like that. So Cheek's army was pretty cool. It definitely forces you in. It's pretty similar to the build I used against Talaxon Soothsayer a couple days ago. Doomdiver Catapults, Squig combo with the Forest Goblin Spider Riders against Empire Cav. I think it's pretty strong. And yeah, it's a good build. It has the tools, and I think it just came down to a couple engagements. Of course, we were able to get those good engagements with the Cav on the flanks, and Volkmar the Grim was just an absolute beast. But yeah, as far as Greenskins go, I'm trying to think what I would do differently. I mean, there's countless ways you can play. You can play with Azag, you can play with Wurzog, and Greenskins do have a really diverse style of play. There's a multitude of ways you can kind of mix it in. But yeah, the Doomdiver Catapults are especially good against New Empire stuff like Marcus and Wagons and all that kind of stuff. So if your opponent is going to be wagon trolling you, Doomdiver Catapults are basically a hard counter. They can just snipe the wagons and heat seek them down, which is really good. So yeah, good stuff. So make sure to check out Cheeks Total War over on his YouTube channel, which will be linked in the comment section below. And thank you guys so much for watching the grand Volkmar Mustache battle. It was quite a bit of fun, and we will see you guys in the next couple days. Take care.